Retro Hangover supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Ashton Ruby, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Katie Quigg, and Paul Ramallo. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to episode 84 of Retro Hangover.
And hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where, in the name of the moon, we'll punish you. This is episode 84 of the Retro Hangover podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Coplien, with guests Seamus Patrick Burke and Sailor Meredith Coplien. And, as always, your host, Shane Pretty Dick Moon Dragon Koski!
Okay, so this will not show up on the actual episode, but I just need to point out that him screaming into the mic just cut in and out.
I got the same thing, yeah.
4 times.
That was amazing.
Like, he was just blowing it right the fuck out. Also, I feel like you're threatening me with a good time with this introduction. What is this moon punishment, and does it involve a 9-foot vampire lady? Please discuss.
I mean, why wouldn't it? If you just give the 9 foot tall vampire lady some makeup kits and some compacts, I think we can make sure that she can punish you in the name of Resident Evil.
Fantastic.
Just a 9-foot tall vampire lady feels like another day at the office for Sailor Moon. Like, you don't even send the whole team for that. You send, like, one of the lower tiers. You send, like, Chibiusa to take care of that. Like, 9-foot tall vampire lady, whatever.
Seems pretty standard.
All right. You can send me. That's fine.
Meredith's dying, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm surprised she wasn't already dying because she's sitting right next to you during that introduction.
Don't die, Meredith. We just started the episode. We need you.
I mean, being with me is a slow death. So everybody, give a warm welcome to my wife, Meredith.
He's not lying.
Isn't that the point? Isn't that the point of marriage? Is that you just die very slowly together for the rest of your days?
True.
Till death do you part. That is in the vows. That is part of the agreement.
I promise I will slowly drain your life force.
I don't think we did those in the vows, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
Yes.
Everyone does them in the vows.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
it's state standard.
She actually just has a very clever out clause in there that you weren't aware of until just now.
It was just hidden in just like, you know, your I was about to say wedding agreement, but that's not it. Like it's a freelance agreement. You need to just, like, you know, kind of say arrange something like for this. God, marriage license. That's what I meant to say.
LegalZoom.com.
You just zoom in really close. It's like the Santa Claus. It's just in very, very tiny text. You can only see with a microscope.
Nice.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm
okay.
fine. No, that's fine. Stop and think. Did he just say Santa Claus?
He probably did.
Okay.
That would be the least offensive thing we said on the show.
Okay.
I mean, I find Santa Claus incredibly offensive.
You would.
Oh, Lord.
Hey, we're reviewing a completely different thing from the 90s, and it's not anything with Tim Allen. We're talking about Sailor Moon.
Good point.
We are.
Although
talking about
now
Sailor Moon.
we need to discuss that crossover.
The Santa Claus Sailor Moon crossover.
That's right.
Starring Tim Allen.
We're in the name of the moon, and he's like, "Arr?"
Tim the Sailor Tool Man. Oh, that's amazing.
I'm gonna transform into Sailor Moon. I don't think so, Tim. Those skirts do nothing for your legs.
Oh god. And then like the mask guy and then Wilson the neighbor can be like partners. This is great.
Wilson has to be tuxedo mask because it would just cover a different part of his face. It would cover the top half instead of the bottom half.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. This has already gone off the rails. I love it.
Yeah, let's get back on topic, please. I never thought I would say that. Can I say really quick? I'm happy that you guys even have me back in the room, given what went down with that Patreon exclusive episode that you recently uploaded. To all of the people on the Patreon, I am very, very sorry, and yet I'm not sorry at all because that was part of the point.
I mean, what do you mean, man? Like, I sold it on that. I was just like, you're getting nearly 2 hours of bonus audio content.
This is what quarantine has done to me, where I'm willing to just binge 300 issues of Sonic the Hedgehog in less than a month, and then just describe to you at length everything that went down. I'm amazed it was as cohesive as it was.
So, Chris.
Hey.
Are you there? Are you still there? Are you with us?
I'm still here.
Have we killed Meredith with laughter yet?
I think she's starting to get angry.
No, that's just my resting bitch face.
We're not talking about Sailor Moon enough, that's why.
Well, in any event then, so Chris, what have you been up to? What anything you've been playing lately we should know about?
Yes, but the first tidbit of information, what I found out, is that we're recording this on Pokemon's official 25th birthday, and it also happens to share birthday with me, which I just found that out. I'm surprised it took me this long.
You just found out that it was your birthday?
That too. Like, I've always celebrated Pokemon's birthday, but then someone told me it was my birthday too. And it's
neat.
Made things a lot more interesting in life for myself. So now I guess I'm 3.
You are the chosen one of Pokemon. Like, you are the one who is meant to be the very best, like no one ever was.
Exactly. Pokemon chose me. I didn't choose the Pokemon life.
Pokemon life represent
it, because I was gonna say happy birthday and everything, but you
happy birthday,
yourself,
man.
So
yeah.
So screw it then. Too late now.
Well, you didn't say anything before the episode. Seamus did. Thank you, Seamus.
You're very welcome.
Other than that, it's okay. It's okay, Shane. You're still cool. We're still buds.
I was saving it for the episode, and you ruined it.
I don't. Well, you can view it that way if you want.
That should be like the motto of every podcast. You know, just I was saving it for the episode, and you ruined it. Like, that just happens. That happened before this, because Chris and I were talking last night, like, which we won't go into. But
Oh, great. So you guys have already had this entire discussion.
No, we have not. We have not.
Okay. All right. So what else are you up to besides discovering that you've been born on this day?
The other thing is I've been playing Nier Automata, and I haven't I just really haven't been playing it a lot. I don't know. I've just been like really tired lately and just kind of huddling around my computer. And one of the reasons is my son got Persona 5 Strikers. So I've been letting him play that. Of course, he got it with his own money, and he was really excited to play it. So let him play that game. I'll go in there and game when I can. My nephews have also been over a lot, and I don't think I should be playing a game like Nier Automata in front of them. But yeah, I'm having a good time with it for the most part. It's not gripping me like the original Nier did, and even though the gameplay is a lot better. So it kind of goes to what if you're a patron and you've heard my review of Nier, the criticisms of Nier is what I don't have with this, but it's just not gripping me.
I always bristle whenever I hear stuff like that, when people say that the game gets good like X amount of hours in, because I got burned with that with Final Fantasy 13, where they said like the game gets good 30 hours in. And I'm like, you do know that's not a point in its favor, right? Like, why can't the game be good as soon as I press play? You know?
It's funny because that is the exact game I was thinking of.
Yes. How could you not?
It should be good right off the get. But I mean, I'm not even that far into it yet. I think about 5 or 6 hours, and I could be further along in the storyline, but because it has quests that you can activate all over the map and takes a bunch of time in order to do, then that's what I do. I always get sidetracked very easily, and that is entirely my fault, so I'm probably playing the game incorrectly.
The Ubisoft problem.
Yeah, that's always a dangerous kind of game, especially Ubisoft games, where you can go over here and you can explore this thing and you can craft this thing and you can build up your homestead, and you finally just snap after 6 hours and you're like, what is the actual goal? What will take me to the next part of the game?
Yeah, and
and then you realize you've just been ignoring the giant arrow pointing you in that direction the entire time.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that giant glowing spire, you might want to head towards that. That might be a thing.
But look at all these flowers I have to collect first.
It's the FOMO of quests. So any case, yeah, that's me. Meredith, how about you? Have you been playing any video games? Why don't give me that look?
No, I've been sewing.
Nice.
Yeah, sewing a Zelda costume for Halloween.
Ooh, which Zelda?
I have no idea. It was just a pattern.
Twilight Princess.
Oh, that's a good one. That's probably one of the top tier Zelda costumes.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I saw the ones from like Skyward Sword and the original Legend of Zelda, and they're not very good. But the template she
Just
got,
like the game.
yeah, I bet you're excited for that Switch re-release. But yeah, she's
fucking A.
she's building it up from scratch, and I'm excited to see what it looks like when she's all done with it.
Well, I suppose that functions as a good segue. I'll touch on mine real quick, because then we'll go to Seamus. But yeah, I finished playing Skyward Sword recently, particularly 2 days prior to the announcement that they're going to make a probably less shitty version for the Switch. And man, was I excited. If you were in our Discord, then you would have seen my reaction to it. It was not pleasant. And so how they're doing it for the Switch, I'm actually not sure that it's going to be, vastly superior, because the way that they've kind of described it is because the, motion specific controls for the sword are like so integral to that game, they needed to come up with some sort of solution to still make that work without doing a whole bunch of extra rework in the game. And so what they've done is they've mapped the sword swipes to the right stick of the Pro controller, and I feel like that's going to be awkward as shit. So we'll see how that works out.
That sounds like too human, where like all the combat was like done with the analog sticks as opposed to the buttons.
Yeah.
Did anyone play Too Human?
I mean, probably somebody.
You literally can't now because they took it off the Xbox Live Marketplace.
Yeah.
Because of the lawsuit.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so finished up Skyward Sword. It was probably one of the most rage-inducing experiences I've had in recent memory, and I do not recommend that game to anyone ever. Conversely, I started up Twilight Princess HD, and I am thoroughly enjoying myself. I did not give that game a very fair shake the first time around, no pun intended, mostly because of the motion controls.
That's terrible.
I got right about to the Gerudo Desert, and then I stopped. And consequently, that's right about where I am now. And playing it on the Wii U with the Pro controller is just such a better experience. I'm actually really enjoying my time with it. So
it's because it's on the Wii U.
Yeah, well, that's actually the reason. Yes, I'm playing it on the best console that's ever been released,
ever
of all time. Yeah, the
people,
GOAT, as the kids say.
People can't even agree if it's a console or not. Is it a console? Is it a handheld? It doesn't really do either very well. But
but
it's a Switch beta.
Darn it,
that's
it
totally
sure
what it
tried.
is. Yeah, like the Switch is an improvement on the Wii U in every conceivable way.
True.
Yeah.
Although I think you might have just pissed off Chris. He's like the one diehard Wii U fan out there.
There's more than just me.
There's dozens
like
of
others.
You offended the Wii U fans, both of us.
Yes, we are both very angry. I'm still trying to find the other one.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. But yeah,
that's your soulmate that you eventually find the other Wii U fan that's still holding out after all these years.
And now you just offended my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if you actually found that person, I probably wouldn't be too mad about it. I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of impressed, actually.
He's the only other Wii U fan, just like I got nothing. We have it written into our marriage agreement that,
yeah.
I was the one that got him the Wii U.
There you go.
See what it took to get that damn thing?
You've brought this upon your own house. But at any rate, outside of Zelda stuff, I also played through and completed Grim Valor for the Switch, which was originally a mobile game. And of course, a lot of people probably immediately cringe when they hear mobile port, but I can assure you that it actually was very well done, and it plays incredibly well on the Switch. It is essentially a 2.5D Souls-like kind of experience, and it's pretty brief, which I think was nice. It's a little compact package. I think I finished it in probably about, I want to say 10 to 12 hours, and it definitely did give me a pretty good challenge, and so I thoroughly enjoyed that as well. It's fairly inexpensive too, so if you like those kind of Souls-like games like that, I might recommend trying to pick that up. I would say definitely do it with a controller. Whether you get it on the Switch or if you play it on mobile, play it with a controller, because it's doable with the swipe controls, but not optimal. Let's just say that. So that's pretty much me. What about you, Seamus? What have you been up to? You been doing any gaming lately besides what we're talking about today?
I have. Although I've kind of been revisiting some stuff because my birthday was earlier this month. I think it was 2 weeks before Chris's. And one of the things that I did is I had some friends come over and soup up my PC. So I got to slap in a new graphics card. I got to do a RAM upgrade. Like, everything's looking good. And so I'm actually going back to a bunch of games that I played on the Gray Man channel when it was first formed and just kind of seeing how the graphics improved. And it's like when you get your glasses prescription updated, you're like, oh my God, I can finally see, like, everything is running at the point that, like, it probably should have been all this time. It's just that when I bought this PC, it was a baby's first gaming PC, and it only had like a 2 gigabyte graphics card. So I just kind of worked with what I had. Definitely not ideal for Let's Play content. So I've been replaying like basically anything with the RE engine, like Resident Evil 2, the recent remake of Resident Evil 3, stuff like that. And it looks really good. But if we're talking just new games, I finally completed Hades. I finally got Mom to come home. I finally got Persephone to come home. And that's how invested you get in that game by that point, because it took me like 60 runs to finally do it. And I finally just started calling them Mom and Dad instead of Hades and Persephone. Like, I was so invested in the story.
Man, I keep hearing about that game. I actually own it. I just haven't gotten around to playing it yet. And there's at least 1 or 2 people in our Discord, the regulars, that continually say that we need to play that game. So I got to get around to that.
Actually, okay. So this is the question that I've been dying to ask since you invited me on this episode. Who is your favorite Sailor Scout? Who is your waifu for laifu? And mine is Sailor Jupiter.
Who? Me?
Yeah, go for it. Who's yours?
Probably if I can't get Jupiter, then it's Pluto.
Mine is still Jupiter. But if you're saying Jupiter, then I'm gonna go. My number 2 is Mars.
I honestly, I have no opinion.
Boo! Boo this man!
Just pick one, man. Boo! It's literally a Sailor Moon episode. Just pick one.
I pick the cat.
Okay, yeah. Like, you pick
Which one?
There's 2 cats.
What do you mean,
3.
which one?
But there's Luna,
okay,
there's
the black
Artemis,
cat.
Diana.
I don't know, the one
That's
that
Luna.
shows
That's
up all
Luna.
over the place all the time.
Luna.
Yep,
Luna.
that one. That's
but-
the one.
But seriously, like, Jupiter is like the most balanced one. Like, she's the tallest. She's like the only proper martial artist on the team, but she can also like cook, and she really wants a boyfriend. She has this very like romantic side to her. Just, she's just friggin' adorable. I'm sorry.
And she's the only one that doesn't wear freaking high heels.
That's true. Yeah, she wears those like really stylish boots. I like the boots.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
practical.
She's your 9-foot tall vampire lady.
Well, shit. All right, I'm sold then.
By the way, apparently, I looked this up. Apparently, she's officially 5'6", which is considered like a giant if you're a woman in Japan. Like, that, you're just considered like, you're just towering over everybody. I think the only taller like female character in like modern Japan is like Sakaki from Azumanga Daioh. She was like 5'10".
So what you're saying is if you're 5'6", you're considered to be kaiju.
Kind of, yeah. Just like, look out, it's Sailor Jupiter! We need to get Rodan!
Well, then, I guess I'm never going to Japan.
Nobody's going anywhere right now, so I don't think any of us are going to Japan, and Japan's not going to us. I'll tell you that right now.
No, definitely not.
I don't know. If a Japanese person started screaming, saying, watch out, there's a giant coming after us when I start walking towards them, I think I'm going to be a little upset.
I actually am.
In any case, before
I feel like I'd take that as a
we
compliment.
continue this discussion, we have a brief history to get to.
Oh, God, we have a show format. Jesus. All right. Yeah, right.
We're 24 minutes in according to the recording, so we should probably talk about this game sooner or later.
I mean,
At some point.
Well, on that note, hey, Chris, why don't you give us some brief history behind the Sailor Moon Another Story?
Usually when one thinks of a licensed game of a major franchise, you would typically expect some crappy throwaway action game. Something that could be developed in a little amount of time with basic assets to be thrown out the door as quickly as possible to maximize profit with very few exceptions. This has pretty much always been the case, especially for Western developers. However, games that are licensed for anime and developed by Japanese studios occasionally try different and more bolder things, like a full-blown role-playing game. Bishoujo Senshi Sailor Moon Another Story isn't the first example of a major anime to take a shot at a traditional RPG experience, but it is the only time that the mega popular franchise would delve into the genre among a pile of beat-em-ups and fighters. Development would begin in 1993 by Angel, who had also developed the previous Super Nintendo games. While most of the development staff is relatively unknown, they did manage to have the composer of the anime series, Takanori Arisawa, create music for the title, as well as receiving supervision directly from the weekly comic, Nakayoshi, that Sailor Moon ran in. The team would also have to come up with an original plot. Since the manga was still an ongoing production, the team decided to create original enemies and have the story take place between the third and fourth story arcs. As such, plot focus would be on the enemies, as the developers made the assumption anyone who would play the game would already be familiar with the game's protagonists. On September 22, 1995, the game would release in Japan, and only in Japan, to mostly positive reception. Reviewers praised the game for its overall presentation and graphics, with some publications going so far as to call it a great game within its genre. The game would remain largely unplayable to Western audiences until much later through emulation and ROM patches, which is how we played it for today. And that is your brief history of Sailor Moon Another Story.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris, for that brief history of the Sailor Moon RPG. And so, as we usually do, we kind of start off this piece of the show with some of our personal experiences, which I think is going to be interesting given the source material. So, I don't know. You know what? Let's start with Seamus. What do you got? What's your experiences with this?
I think Meredith and I might be like the two big Sailor Moon super fans in the room, because I really became I really became like a big fan of the show like in middle school. Which is kind of funny because you got to remember this came out in the 90s. So if you were a boy and you were into anything meant for girls at all, you were immediately like pilloried by anybody. So I was kind of like low key a Sailor Moon fan. I didn't talk about it very much with people. And I remember, there was that typical thing in the 90s where they're just like, you're into Sailor Moon? That's so gay. And I think my comeback was always, dude, it's girls in short skirts fighting monsters. You're gay if you don't like it. Meanwhile, I'm saying that about possibly like the gayest anime that you could possibly see. Like, it is just so, like, even just at its mildest, like, the show is just so incredibly gay. I mean, you had two Sailor Scouts that were in a relationship with each other that, even though they tried to censor that in the English dub, like, nobody was fooled. Like, not even me. And I didn't understand anything about dubbing at the time. But
it only makes it weirder.
And I had played like most of the games through the emulation scene, like you mentioned, but most of them were the beat 'em ups. They were the ones that were kind of like Final Fight, where you just like move to the right and you just beat up a bunch of people, which those were actually kind of good. I actually really liked those. This was the first time I had really played it extensively.
Gotcha. All right. Chris, we'll pass it over your way. What about you two? Whoever wants to go first, knock yourselves out.
Okay, Meredith, you're now going to be colloquially known as Chris, apparently, according to Shane.
You're both in the same fucking room, ass.
You can talk to her. Meredith. Well, I'll go after you. How about you explain how...
Hey, Chris and not Chris, what are your feelings on Sailor Moon?
Actually, I started Sailor Moon, I think, what was it, 95? So I was probably in the 5th grade. And it came on right after I got out of school because I was on the West Coast. And so 4 o'clock, first thing I did was go home, watch the show, and then do my homework. But I finished the whole series in the American dub, which Seamus was right. Them trying to cover up the whole two gay characters was really weird because they made them cousins. But
the American solution to the problem.
Yeah, it was like, it fooled nobody. It didn't.
Did they give them Southern accents too?
That would have been perfect, though.
No.
Well, like, and what's hilarious is that they still kept like the very romantic scenes where they're looking at each other in the eyes and just and everything else. And I kept thinking, did they try to make this into family love? Because that makes it way worse.
Well,
instead of romantic love.
I think even when they were like looking at each other intensely, and they took it out in the American scenes, but in some scenes they actually kissed.
Yes,
it was
It's like Tom Brady and his son.
Oh God! Like, what do you have to bring up Tom Brady just like in this house right now? What, like, okay, just 2021 is already not off to a good start because Tom Brady has another fucking Super Bowl win under his belt. Just like, that's exactly what we deserve right now. I hope you're proud of yourself, 2021. You let Tom Brady win another Super Bowl.
Continue, Meredith.
Sorry, Meredith.
No, it's okay. But if you haven't watched the Sailor Moon Crystal recently, it's actually closer to the manga than the actual anime show from the 90s. I liked it a lot.
My only complaint with Sailor Moon Crystal was they had that one scene where they stuck Uranus in a skirt. And I'm just like, no. She cannot wear a skirt.
My anus can definitely not be in a skirt.
Oh my God.
Not with that attitude.
But in any case, my personal experience with Sailor Moon is somewhat similar to Seamus's. I was watching Sailor Moon after school on Toonami, which was on Cartoon Network. I think it's still on Cartoon Network. I think they relaunched it. But I watched it there, and it was just kind of like a jumping point for anime in general, because it had Sailor Moon, it had Dragon Ball Z, it had Gundam Wing. It didn't do the best job of delivering it, but that's because the audience wasn't necessarily there yet. So, like, I don't remember it really going past, like, the Inner Senshi, which is the initial 5 Sailor Scouts, and when I was watching it back then. It may have, but I just don't remember watching it as much. But the Inner Senshi, of course, is Sailor Moon, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Mercury. And then everyone beyond that is called the Outer Senshi, which are in this game. So when it came to the video game, Sailor Moon video games, of course, we didn't get any in the United States. So I didn't play any of those probably until the early 2000s, at probably the earliest. And that, like Seamus said, they're all beat 'em ups, like the Final Fight, Streets of Rage kind of.
They're either beat 'em ups or they're puzzle games. They had so many puzzle games for the Famicom.
Right, but I didn't play any. I didn't play any of those. But yes, there are a lot of puzzle games as well. But they were mostly fighting games and beat 'em ups, because there was a lot of fighting games as well. And I played mostly the beat 'em ups, and the beat 'em ups were definitely better than the fighting games. The fighting games were pretty fucking terrible. And it's funny that you say that they're good. You're like, oh, I remember them being good, because when we went to the episode discussion of which game should we play, it was the RPG or the beat 'em up, Seamus did recommend the RPG. And now that he's saying that the beat 'em ups were good, if only he could see the daggers in my eyes that we're going to be discussing here soon. But yeah, I played through this game the first time before this episode.
Don't put this on me. I just said
I am.
I'm willing to take the blame for the Sonic podcast. I'm not going to take the blame for this one. Like, the Sonic podcast was actually my idea. This is just a friendly suggestion that you ran with.
Yeah, this is going to be a better podcast for sure. Not saying the other one was bad.
Wow.
But this is already off to a good start.
So if you too want to experience some bonus audio content and pay money for it, please consider joining our Patreon.
It's a good episode.
Can I say part of my reason for pitching it was because I knew that Chris would be completely flabbergasted by the end of it, and that is like, there is some entertainment to be gleaned from that. So, like,
my brain melted.
The fact that it was like, yeah, just brain melting, like, is part of the experience.
Well, I get to cap off the personal experience section, and man, is this one a banger? Let me tell you. Out of everybody in the proverbial room right now, I have never once watched an episode of Sailor Moon or played a Sailor Moon video game, except for this one, in my entire life. So I like the cat.
You're the control part of the experiment. Like, you're the one who's just coming at this completely impartial, aside from the rest of us.
Absolutely, that is me. Yep, I started playing this game, and well, we'll get into this in the next pieces. But they made a lot of assumptions about the things that they thought I should know going into this.
This is
now we know that Shane likes Virgos.
That took me a second, but yeah, okay.
Oh, God.
I am not a doctor, sir.
Wait.
He'd like to play doctor.
Whoa. You're not a doctor?
All right. Well, I guess that is going to be as good as anything as far as a functional segue into talking about some of the plot and writing in the game. So, you know what? Chris and or Meredith, whoever wants to start it off, why don't you talk a little bit about this?
Okay, so the plot of the game is essentially Final Fantasy 1 is the best way I can describe this, where people from the future go to the past to affect the present, and it's pretty much a plot device in order to get all the baddies from the entire series up until that point to fight the Sailor Scouts. Now, of course,
it's planned to eradicate the Sailor Scouts.
Yeah, and it doesn't really make any sense from a logical point of view. I didn't think it did. And the entire time, because I don't remember all of the bad guys, I kept on having to ask Meredith here, like, who are these characters? And then she would explain it to me. And I think they have, what is it called? Like the Bishoujo Senshi, which essentially is the opposite of the Sailor Scouts. So the Sailor Scouts just, in a mirror reflection. And Meredith was talking to me. Who are you talking to me about? It was the
Barrels Generals?
Not Barrels Generals, the female, they're all their Sailor Scouts.
The weird sisters, the ones from
The Witches 5?
Maybe you said that there was a group of people. Anyway, they weren't them. Like it was a completely original plot.
You guys are all just saying words. I don't even.
Yeah.
Negamoon? The Negamoon.
Probably.
We were talking about the Negamoon.
The Bizarro Sailors.
Well, the thing is
I
that
didn't even know what was going on with all these, with the plot, and it was a very contrived kind of, like I said, Final Fantasy 1 plot, where Garland's in the present and you kill him, but you have to go back to the past because the 4 fiends you defeat in the present are in the past, sending Garland to the future. And that's kind of something like this game. And it's all about controlling destiny and where people are supposed to be and manipulating where they're supposed to be. And it's very strange. And if you've never played a Sailor Moon game before, you're not going to get it. And if you have played Sailor Moon before, Sailor Moon game, or watched Sailor Moon, you probably might get a lot of it either.
And see, here I thought the whole point was just collect a bunch of really pretty jewelry accessories.
Well, it is.
Well, you can do that in the shop in the game because they actually have jewelry as like your armor. So you get like you get like earrings that up your defense, or you get like a bracelet that will up your attack or whatever. So jewelry literally powers you up in this game, just like the show.
Yeah.
Meredith, you care to explain what the meaning behind all the jewelry is in relation to the show?
Just everybody has their own jewel that just like lets them transform into their sailor form. Like that's kind of
usually their pen, but Luna usually at the most inconvenient times usually gives Usagi her transformation pen where she can. I think it was in one episode she transformed into a flight attendant to get onto the bus.
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. Well, okay. There's an episode where Jedi stole
Star Wars.
a bus.
Okay.
Stole a bus.
Short-haired blonde guy.
They don't know who Jedi is.
Oh, okay. Well, he's one of Barrel's generals, bad guy.
Barrel's a bad guy.
And they stole a bus full of people, and it's in Sailor Moon Crystal, and she uses her transformation pen to turn into a flight attendant for some reason. So a lot of their jewels do things for them when whether they're transformed or not.
Gotcha.
Which, by the way, it feels like the disguise pen should be like a way more useful power up than it actually was. Like they only used it in the first couple of seasons, and then they just kind of like phased it out. And I'm kind of like, no, you could use that to transform into literally anything to accomplish your mission. Why would you get rid of that? That's arguably better than the silver crystal power up.
Because sometimes Usagi is an idiot. I mean, she transformed into a flight attendant to get onto a bus.
Actually, that's something we should probably talk about really quickly, is that when I first started watching Sailor Moon, I didn't get it originally because Usagi is a crybaby who runs away from a fight, and it actually takes her a very long time to become a decent leader. Like, the English theme song has the lyric, like, never running from a real fight. And I'm like, that's literally what she does in the first fight that she has in the first episode. but that's kind of why
all she does.
That's kind of why I like her, because she has a human reaction despite transforming into a magical girl. I mean, she feels like the female version of Vash the Stampede, where they're built up as this badass and yet they're a total goofball once you actually meet them.
That's a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
She's Vash the Stampede.
Yeah, because Vash has the similar thing. Like, you hear the legends about him, and then you actually see him fight, and you're like, what's going on? Oh, huh?
Who's this clown?
Yeah, but then the show goes on, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, you kind of see what's going on.
Well, as you might be able to tell from this discussion so far, this game was clearly made for fans of the show.
Actually, because of that, it won me over very early, because the first thing is that Sailor Mercury is going to meet her boyfriend who's visiting from out of town, and that boyfriend actually did appear in the show, and all the girls sneak off to the train station to see them reunite. I'm just like, oh, hey, her boyfriend's back. Like, you know, I wonder what happened to that guy. Like, I was sincerely invested in the story at the beginning.
See? There you go.
Even Meredith brought that up to me before. I'm like, oh, is this a real character from the show? She's like, yeah, but he's just a throwaway. It's interesting that he's in there. So they did actually put in a lot of fan service to like hardcore fans of the show, like very small details that probably most people who are just casual fans wouldn't know or remember.
Actually, we should probably mention that since we are playing this on an emulator, that the translation that we got was a fan translation, and they clearly threw in some references to fans of the English dub, because when you play Sailor Jupiter's part, someone mentions how talented she was, which was the English way of getting around the fact that in the original scene, Sailor Jupiter is basically saying she should do something because she has the biggest bust out of the entire crew. So talent has become a euphemism for big breasts in the Sailor Moon community.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
9 foot tall, talented vampire.
See, you're already getting the vernacular already.
Hey, Shane, do you want to talk to us about some of the creepier aspects of this game?
Sure. So I mean, well, okay, we'll touch that first, I guess. So yeah, there's definitely some interesting choices that were made, although I feel like we might be able to chalk them up partially to the time in which this was made and also where it's coming from, and possibly also a little bit of the fan translation. There's a lot of variables that are involved there, but there's one specific piece that definitely stood out to me, and that's during Chapter 2 of the game. There's a character called Dr. Schwartz, who one of the sailors meets up with.
Sailor Mercury. This is at her portion.
Right. Yeah. So Mercury requires his assistance to accomplish her goal, and he has some interesting things to say. I noticed that Chris, I think, said it was Venus. Was it Venus or was it Mercury?
No, it was Mercury.
No,
I just said so.
That's a separate issue.
Okay.
It is Mercury,
Okay.
but Venus has her own issues.
Everybody has their own creepy thing for this segment, like because
Which I feel like is a commentary in and of itself.
Chapter two of the game, after you kind of figure everything out, you actually fight with the Sailor Scouts together very, very little in this game. Like immediately when they get to the second portion, they split everybody up, and for the whole second chapter, you have like 4 solo segments instead of everybody fighting as a group.
Right.
It's very strange.
Yeah. So you've got this Dr. Schwartz character, and he makes a lot of let's go with lewd comments regarding his potential intentions towards the sailor. Also makes some comments about her astrological sign and how that might imply that she is a virgin. And then just straight up asks what her age is. And when she tells him, which I believe was what, like 15?
14,
Yeah.
15.
He is not deterred in the least. And that is just
And he's
one
in his 60s.
instance of this kind of thing
Not
happening.
surprised.
And see, the shitty part
You
is that
should run for president.
well, we're not going there right now. We'd be here all fucking day. But what I was gonna say is that this era of anime, like you saw a bunch of jokes like that. Like it reminded me most of Master Roshi from Dragon Ball. But the thing with Master Roshi is that usually like Bulma will hit him over the head and he'll get some kind of like comeuppance for being a pervert. And this doesn't happen because this doctor happened to hit on Sailor Mercury, who's like the shyest and the most demure of the Sailor Scouts. So I kind of felt like that was putting her in a really shitty position. Like Mars and Jupiter would have totally socked him in the face. No question they would have done that. But Sailor Mercury's like, I'm like, don't do this to this poor young woman.
You should see Meredith's face right now. She's very disgusted.
Yeah. Now, I agree with that disgust face that I can't see right now because we're recording this via web chat.
Yeah. And so I suppose that also kind of dovetails into a larger point about kind of the writing and direction of some of this stuff, which I have been informed is a running theme through the show. Of course, I'm not aware of that, being the control group here in the audience. But one thing that I did note while playing through this is that there are some like painfully clear spots where they are just making this like women are incapable and a man should do this moments, where a sailor just kind of like rolls her eyes and is like, ugh, okay, this again, fine. Yeah, sure. You're in control, man guy. I guess go do it. And then they're really the one that's kind of running things, but they like to let the guy think he's doing it.
Is that a real thing, Meredith?
Yeah, I think it's a product of its time, though, because, let's face it, was the 90s, and they're 14, 15-year-old girls, so anytime they try to tell anybody how to do things, they pretty much get shot down by any man around them.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I liked the approach because it seemed very clear that like they were strong individuals, that like they knew what their own strength and power was, but they were also smart enough to just be like, you know what, this isn't even worth my time. Okay, sure, yeah, you're gonna go take care of it, I guess. And then ultimately they're the ones that solve the problem. So I actually kind of appreciated that.
They're just like rolling their eyes and making like the jerk off motion behind the back when they're not.
Exactly.
This fucking guy, am I right?
It's like the temple scene. They show up, she shows up there, and the guy just straight up just walks up and he's just like, women don't belong here. You can't go by yourself. I have to go with you.
Meredith actually saw that scene about the mansplaining scene.
I actually wanted to jump in and just punch him in the face.
Well, they have like I forget whose segment it is, but they have like one village it's Mars. Yeah, where they have the villages segmented by gender.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't really play into anything when you think about it. Like, there's no real payoff. Like, there's never a moment where the two villages reunite. Like, as far as you know, they're still separated by gender by the time you leave that part of the game.
I think another thing to take into consideration, and Shane made an allusion to this, is where it's from. It's made in Japan. We can say it's a product of its time, and maybe Japan's changed a little bit since then in terms of how it writes its female characters. I'm sure. But this is Japanese culture almost 101. It's just a very Japanese thing that the people in this conversation in America, it's very foreign to us, and we look down on it, or like we're like, wow, this is backwards. But Japan's different. It's just their culture and how they view things is radically different, and it's probably not much different now than it was back then, at least from my own personal experiences. And I'd love to be proved wrong on that. I really hope it is different, but that's just how things are over there. Their concept of how they treat women is much different than how we treat women in America, at least present company included.
Well, and that being said, I feel even with the flaws with the original show and with the game, I kind of feel like a lot of stuff that the show did was like still kind of forward thinking, even in spite of that. The fact that you have two main characters who are like in a gay relationship, or you get to the Sailor Stars series where that kind of blows the concept of gender open completely. Like, you have the Sailor Stars who present as female, like in their transform state, but in their civilian state, they kind of present as male, which is really inconsistent depending on the adaptation and the dub, how that kind of works. But that's still like the fact that you're able to even have gender fluid characters in a society that has such strict rules for gender, overall, like I still think, is very laudable.
Yeah.
And I think just the entire culture. I mean, they have their better things about their culture, and they have their things that we view negative about their culture, and it's just different in what they value and how they view things. But what we can definitely agree on here is that this gameplay.
It sure is some gameplay.
I know Meredith. We'll get to it, but I threw in the towel before we recorded this. I tried my best to beat it. This is the only game in my appearance on this show that I have not beaten before talking about it. So I apologize to everybody. I did my best.
Well, hey, that's okay, because cards on the table, I also threw the towel in on this one. I didn't finish it either because I couldn't.
So I guess I'm the one who beat this game.
Yep. I sure did watch a long play on YouTube, though, so I got that.
It's not a very long. Yeah, I did see the long play. And this is not a very long game. It's like 15 hours. That's not even a weekend. Like, if you batten down the hatches, you should be able to beat this pretty quickly. But there's just tons of stuff that prevents that.
Yes, there is. And so to that point, Chris, as the only one who was stalwart enough to see this thing through to completion, you want to talk a little bit about some of the mechanics that we got going on here?
So I'm going to write this down because I'm proud of this line, and maybe I shouldn't be. But the gameplay in this game is like buying a dozen flowers, and then you get a 50 bag of shit for fertilizer and the seeds with it. So
it's the IKEA of gardening.
Yeah, it's all there. The fundamentals here for a good RPG, I would say, turn-based RPG, because it's not an active time battle. It's a turn-based RPG. Everyone selects their moves before, they perform their actions, and then actions are performed based on who has the highest speed, And for the most part, and when it works, it works. And when it's balanced, it's balanced. The problem is that it's not balanced, and it results in not working for pretty much boss characters, or especially later in the game if you have under-leveled characters. This game wants you to grind, and it wants you to grind a lot. And that's where most of its length comes from if you're playing it straight up and honest. It's just one time, at one level, you'll be absolutely crushed, and then you'll gain one level and then just start waxing ass. And there's no explanation to it other than you maybe have gotten 2 more power. So you'll be doing 2 damage, and then the next level you'll be doing 40 damage, or you'll be taking 40 damage, and then the next level you'll be taking 2 damage from the enemy. So this game has very rigid level markers it wants you to accomplish for moving on in certain situations, unless you're set up with certain items or whatever the case might be.
Or where everybody is placed on the battlefield, which that only introduces it like in the 4th chapter when you're already like 80% of the way through the game.
I didn't even remember them talking about it at all.
They didn't, no.
I just happened to fall onto it. And when I was just, I don't know, fiddling around with the controls, it had all these different formations. And I just stumbled on it.
Like,
and
this is what
the game doesn't explain shit.
This is what made me quit, because I get through all of the portions with the individual Sailor Scouts. I get through chapter 3. I get to chapter 4 when you get to go to this new segment where you get to pick any Sailor Scout that you want. But the thing is that the battlefield placement that you have every Sailor Scout in is very important, because some will either give more, their attack will be better, or their defense will be better, just at all kind of, and there's different formations. Like one is an arrow, one of them is just like a shoot where it goes from like top left to bottom right. And then there's a cluster where you have somebody in the center. And I could not figure that out for the life of me. And it throws me into this scenario where you have to fight the Weird Sisters from the 3rd story arc. The Dark Lady arc.
Do you know the name, Meredith?
Yeah.
God, I know their American names. It was, Catsy and Birdie and those ones?
Yeah, that's the one.
They were from Sailor Moon R, I think, or S.
Yeah.
They had to be from S.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when Chibiusa came.
So and you're supposed to fight all 4 of them in just like this marathon battle style, and I could not figure out a combination to save my life, because this game could not give me like a really decent idea of what I was supposed to do for a good combination. Like Mars had really good attack, but then like Jupiter had really bad defense, and so did Venus, and Mercury was friggin' useless at this point. I shouldn't have brought her along, and I finally just couldn't do it. And by the time, my original idea was I was going to go back and I could see if I could put together a different combination. But the save state that I had on the emulator was about 2 hours behind. And I finally just threw my hands up and I said, fuck it, I'm not playing this again for another 2 hours just to get back here. So that's what made me throw my hands up and quit.
I mean, I got to be honest, I don't really blame you there. But so a couple of things that Chris pointed out, so they're 2 kind of separate but related issues, right? So you've got, first of all, the thing that you pointed out about how one level makes such a huge difference. The progression, somebody actually, I don't recall who it was, but again, I keep plugging our Discord, but somebody mentioned it in the Discord that they would really, really love to see the math behind this in this game. And I tend to agree, because the character progression makes like 0 sense. It's not linear. It's not even fucking logarithmic. It just like spikes for no reason. And Chris was not being hyperbolic, where you will be fighting certain enemies and you'll be taking like, let's say 100 damage or something per hit. You level your characters up once and you go and fight that same enemy, and suddenly you're taking like 10 or even less. And conversely, you're doing vastly more damage than you did before. And so one level up could make such a huge difference in some cases, and then maybe not always in others. So that in itself is problematic, because you never really know what you're going to get with that, right? So that's one issue. The second issue is the difficulty inconsistencies. It's very, very spiky, particularly with the boss fights. And where Seamus threw in the towel, admittedly, much further than I did, I just straight up fucking quit at like the second boss in this game.
Oh, Mercury's boss is it? Yeah,
that's Mercury's boss is a fucking demon.
Fuck. So okay, you go through the preceding area, right, and you level up quite a bit along the way. I will say though that this game is 100% shameless in the fact that it wears it on its face that it wants and expects you to just grind, as Chris mentioned. Like, there's no bones about it. And this was one of those cases where I was like, oh, maybe I should, stop and grind a little bit before I do this. But even having done that, I went into that fight, and without going into all of the details, essentially, if you did not bring a very specific item with you that you should have purchased from
I was
the
about to
shop.
say that, the earrings, yeah.
Well, not even that. The poison cleansing. Like, if you
that too.
Yeah, if you didn't have, what the fuck was it, like bath salts or something?
Bath medicine. Yeah, bath salts.
So, like, if you don't buy the bath bomb from the shop and stock up on that so that it will cleanse poison from your characters, and by the way, there's like no way that this was telegraphed to you that this is something you should have done.
Not even close.
You end up in this boss fight, and it turns into just this fucking slog because it has 2 phases. The first phase is super simple. It's very easy. You're doing more or less normal damage that you would expect for your character at that particular level. So you knock that out and you're like, all right, awesome. I'm on a roll. And then the boss is like, this is not my final form, as they are wont to do. And then they go into phase 2, where suddenly you're doing like 12 damage for no reason.
I wasn't even doing that low. I was doing like 2 damage, like for a character that has like 200 HP, which shouldn't be that difficult, but it's just like poking with 2 damage for this entire battle until they fall down.
Exactly. And it became this like battle of attrition where even with your very limited use special abilities, I think I was maybe pulling out like 24 points of damage per hit, which was pathetic. And then on top of that, as I mentioned with the poison cleanse, if you did not bring one, which spoiler, I didn't, then like you just end up having to burn through all of your healing potions to not die. But I shit you not, I actually did not finish this fight, and yet I still was at it for, I think, at least 20 minutes.
And not just that boss in particulars is very egregious in the way you have to defeat it. It takes a long time. Even when you get to the point where the boss does very low damage to you, and you do low damage to it. It's like there's no way around it. You're not going to be able to take that boss out quickly. But you look at the later stages in the game, and I'll get to the later bosses as well, where the game forces you to use all their Sailor Scouts. And you think to yourself, this isn't a big deal. You go into any real JRPG, and it's going to want you to diversify your character usage. The problem is because the way that you gain levels is almost exponential, you're bound to be saddled with a party that is extremely underleveled. So if you don't know that you're underleveling your Sailor Scouts because you want to pick your favorite scouts to go level up with, you're going to get to a part where they're going to force you to use Chibiusa, which is the child character, as your main character who can't do shit for damage. And you might have a party that's like 20 levels under where they should be. And you're just going to get repeatedly slaughtered over and over and over again until you figure out a way to get them at the proper level. Not to mention that the boss characters in the later game, yeah, I mean, there's situations where they're not going to kill you in one hit, but they all have moves that can essentially wipe out your entire party. And the only way to get around that is if you have Sailor Pluto, who feels like she's broken because she can stop every single enemy from doing an action for 2 turns. That's one of her basic abilities. The thing is you don't have her in your party, these enemies will absolutely wax your ass because some of the ways to survive their attacks is to defend, and that's the only way to do it. And there's no way to know that the bosses are going to do that attack that is going to wipe out your entire party. There's no signal or anything like that. You just have to defend while Pluto gives the boss character a delay.
I was going to say, because I didn't play to the far enough where I would recruit Sailor Pluto in my party, but the real OP character for me was Sailor Saturn. Like, because she has a attack that can do damage to multiple people, and it just like wipes everybody out in one move as soon as you get like her to a certain level. So I would just put her at the first of the party, and then I would just have everybody else defend. And by the way, the spikes between when you defend and when you don't also get ridiculous. Like if you don't defend, there are some bosses that will take like 200 HP and they will like kill you in one move. But if you defend, they'll just take like 5 HP or something like that. Like it's just the difference is just staggering.
Oh, and the thing you said about Sailor Saturn gives me one more quick point I do want to bring up, because you're right. Sailor Saturn is extremely useful. The thing was, I didn't think Sailor Saturn was extremely useful because I didn't have her proper items equipped.
Yes.
Which is another huge issue, is that there's certain items for certain Sailor Scouts that once you equip them, their stats go way, 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 way up. Now, if you equip the wrong item on the wrong Sailor Scout, and that Sailor Scout is not in your party, and you can't swap your party members, you're fucked.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
That Sailor Scout can't do shit.
Because I had like the power-ups for like some of them, but not other ones. I didn't search around for the environment. So the fact that I was kind of going in like a little bit unprepared, because I just had the inner Senshi for the part in the game where I quit, and just everybody just kept on getting wrecked, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not all the items tell you which is supposed to be with which scout. Most of them do, but not all of them. So you could easily put the wrong item on the wrong scout and then not have it accessible to the correct scout when you need to put it on.
Well, I feel like Meredith is just sitting there shaking her head at you because, like, if you were a true Sailor Moon fan, you would know which goes with which.
No, Meredith, back me up on this. The earrings never really come into play, like earrings or anklets or anything else.
No.
But in the game, aren't they all labeled with their, like,
They are. I was about to say that.
Like, it's like ruby
God damn it,
earrings.
Shane, you interrupted Meredith.
I'm sorry. Go on, Meredith. Go, please.
No. But Seamus is right, is that they don't actually really have anything to do with the show or the comics. That the only things they ever really used were their pens and any little devices that Luna gives them after they needed them.
Oh god, that's actually a good thing to mention. Like, you and Chibiusa both have a holy grail if you're playing Sailor Moon, and you can only use them in battle, and they give you, like, massive power-ups because the holy grail was a power-up in the show. The thing is that they never tell you about the holy grail, and they never tell you how beneficial it is. The holy grail is basically the only way that Chibiusa becomes a halfway useful character.
Yeah, isn't that something they start you off with, too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they never,
it's just in your inventory.
And they never explain it. They never explain that. They never explain, like, how to use formations to the best of your ability. Just nothing.
Right. And actually, to that point.
One last thing.
Well, I was going to say, to that point, there was one more thing, and maybe you were about to say the same thing, but we need to talk briefly before we move on to the next piece here about the method in which you are meant to discover the link techniques in this game.
Oh, discover what link techniques.
That wasn't what I was going to bring up. I was going to be much more briefer, but what you're about to discuss, it's garbage.
Yeah.
And it should be cool. There are so many things about this game where you feel like if they refined it a little bit more, this would be great, but it's just so incredibly unbalanced and it doesn't explain anything.
Right, exactly. And that's a
pound bag of shit in the seas.
And that's one of the biggest problems, is because I think a running theme through most of this game is a lot of really great ideas, but just really poor execution. And the link techniques are a perfect example of this, because in my mind, so real quick, what these are basically is there are different abilities that you kind of unlock by using certain combinations of sailors, right? And so you would think that you could organically discover these by just playing with different party compositions, and then you'd be able to see, oh, these 2 or 3 sailors, when they get together, they can do this like link combo, and it's really neat. Except that's not how it works. The way that you have to discover these is through a menu system. So you go into the pause menu, and there's like a links section, and all you have to do, and by the way, you can do this from like minute 1 of the game, and which is more or less what I did once I discovered that menu in there. You go in and you basically just exhaustively go through and just try every single combination of 2 to 3 sailors until you unlock every possible link combo, and then you have them all discovered for the rest of the game. So I ask, what is the point of that system then, if it's just there for you to just go through and unlock? Like, that's the most boring way to discover those things. And I just feel like with a lot of other aspects of this game, great idea, incredibly poor execution.
You know what this game reminded me of the most? How many people in this room have played Final Fantasy Mystic Quest?
Some.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
love it.
For those who have not played it, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, like, Final Fantasy wasn't a big hit in the West, and Japan kind of got it in their head. I don't know where they got the idea, but they thought, oh, maybe Americans haven't figured out how to play RPGs, and so their solution was to put together like a baby's first RPG to introduce it to the West. Which is, if you feel insulted hearing that, you should feel insulted.
Still a good game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But the thing is that the simplicity is a design choice. And so the game is still really solid, even though it's very straightforward. Like, you're always moving forward. There's never a point where you feel like you have to grind. You're always going to the next village, always going to the next temple, always going to the next part of the story. And everything just feels kind of simplistic. And so for a game like this, where I feel like their primary audience would be like young girls, like, you know, like who may or may not be into RPGs, I feel like there's a market for simplistic RPGs. Like, that's why I was kind of on board in the first chapter. I mean, there's even a little thing where if you press the L and R buttons, like, your character will just fucking zoom across the screen like the Flash, so you can just get to a certain area quicker. But
shit, I wish I knew that.
It's really great. Just like you hold down the left and right buttons, or the L and R buttons, and you'll just be like, oh, you'll just book it across the screen. It's amazing.
Fuck.
But there's all these like little things that I feel like cut down on what would be a frustration in another game. And so I see almost a seed of that, but because it's so unbalanced and it's so unintuitive and it doesn't really explain anything, like, if they were trying to market it towards young kids, I feel like they would be really frustrated. They would give up on the second boss like Shane did.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in a roundabout way, you just called me a small child, and that's fine.
You do play games on Babby mode.
That is true. I do like my easy mode games.
And by the way, like, part of the reason I kind of still like Mystic Quest is because I'm a grown-ass man who doesn't have time to play a 100-hour epic. So, like, I kind of appreciate something that I can just, like, play with one hand and just, like, kind of, like, you know, have a YouTube video open in the other thing, and you just press A and you win, you know?
That's...
Play Trials of Mana.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right up your alley.
Oh, man.
And so before we move on, for what it's worth, because I feel like we've been doing a lot of shitting on this, I will say that there was definitely way more effort put into this than I think anybody might expect from your, you know, typical licensed game.
I will agree with that.
Chris kind of pointed it out in the brief history, but this could have very easily been just like a throwaway cash grab thing. And I think that there are elements of, you know, real effort put into this that, granted, not very well refined, but definitely more than I think most would expect from a licensed title.
Oh, and one of those aspects are the graphics.
Yeah. Fantastic segue. We're professionals. So talk to me about these graphics.
The graphics themselves, and this is where Meredith can come back in the conversation because, you know,
she's asleep now.
She didn't play the game. Yeah, she's napping.
What do you think, Meredith?
I woke her up. But the graphics themselves, like, they're not perfect by any means. But I would like to point out some of the later stages and the battle graphics. And just the sprites being so well designed in and of themselves for a 16-bit, you know, Super Nintendo game, where they easily could have mailed this in and not put as much effort into it. But you could tell there's some care and effort going into it. It looks really good. It's not quite up to the standard you're going to expect from, like, Squaresoft, but there are some times where I looked at the screen and I'm like, okay, this is kind of similar to the backgrounds that you would get in a Final Fantasy VI or you would get in a Lufia. And I was impressed sometimes by the amount of detail, like the Mode 7, when you get the airship and you can fly around in the past. I think it's the past. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by the way this game looked at times.
Well, and all the portraits and all the sprites, like for all the Sailor Scouts, like everybody looks how they're supposed to and everybody acts how they're supposed to. Like, my favorite part of the story was just when the Sailor Scouts were going like, you know, oh, who's your new boyfriend? Oh, you know, just, oh, I'm so in love with him. And everybody just having their very goofy conversations like they do in every single episode. I kind of got on board with that. Like, everybody felt like themselves.
Yeah, and actually, so that's I have a Meredith question now. So If you, I'm assuming you saw at least some of the gameplay for like the battles and stuff. So the special abilities that the different sailors have in this game, for the ones that you did see, were these things that lined up at all with the show? Like, did the effects that they had, were they like similar to the source material at all, or was this something they came up with just for the game?
Most of them.
Okay.
Some of them were, it looks like they just made up on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way to explain it. But most of them look like they lined up pretty well.
Okay.
Although all of the attacks like are voiced by the actual cast from the Japanese show. Like, and they
that's for the sound section.
Sorry.
You're skipping ahead.
I didn't know. I didn't
We
fucking
live
know.
in a society. This is a structure.
I'm sorry.
You have the notes.
All right. Well, so that's good then. I mean, I think being faithful to the source material is definitely important, especially for this kind of a title. And for, for what it's worth, being someone who has no idea about any of that, I think just from a purely like objective standpoint outside of being a fan or anything, I thought that, the sprites and the graphics and the battle effects in particular were pretty well done. I don't know exactly when. I know Chris said it in the history, like in the life cycle of the Super Famicom that this came out in. Was it earlier?
Later.
Or later?
Late.
Okay.
95.
That might be a little bit less of a point than
PlayStation Saturn.
Yeah.
We're already out.
I was gonna say, like, the one thing that I feel like, and maybe fucking for all I know, maybe this happened later in the game because I sure as hell didn't get there. But I feel like one of the things that maybe would have been nice is, maybe a little bit more of some of those like real bombastic, like big, super detailed, like boss sprites and stuff that you do get from some of the Final Fantasy titles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, like a Kefka level sprite for the final boss or something. Yeah, because you do get to fight. You do get to fight Queen Beryl from the first season, and she does kind of go into her like ultimate form that which plays into the finale of the first season. But it looks like really mundane. Like her sprite just looks like Queen Beryl standing in the middle of a giant flower. It doesn't really have like the fear or majesty that the original scene had.
Well, I would say this. I mean, the final boss looks pretty cool. The sprite for the final boss looks cool.
I'll take your word on it.
We'll take your word for it since we didn't get there.
They try to stay faithful to the anime aesthetic. So like it's always going to have that kind of shading and that kind of look, and I think Meredith can kind of back me up from what she saw on this because I'm just trying to get her more involved in the episode. But I will say like it looks similar to it's slightly better than the bosses you get in say Final Fantasy V. Mm-hmm. For the sprite animation, if either you play Final Fantasy V,
I was about to say that, yeah, because the final boss for Final Fantasy V has one of the most detailed sprites.
But the final boss, but I'm saying like the general boss sprites, the general enemy
Oh,
sprites.
I see.
This is above that. Now, like the very finer details, the final bosses for like Final Fantasy 4 and 5, no, it doesn't quite reach that level. But on average, it's better than what those games are giving you.
Yeah,
I see.
And I will say that, I mean, as far as like the environments are concerned, I think that they were definitely well varied and identifiable, not necessarily anything that really stood out too much to me. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that it was very serviceable. I mean, I personally 100% hated the first like city section just because I kept getting my dumbass continually lost in where I needed to go.
And the encounter rate is way too high. So you're just like fighting everyone off while you're trying to remember where to fucking go.
Yeah. It's like every 5 steps I'm fighting someone in the city and I'm just like, I'm just trying to get to the shop.
I'm just trying to buy a manicure.
Yeah. I need my hair did.
Which, by the way, we haven't mentioned that. Like, the manicure actually ups your attack. You up your attack with, like, nail polish.
That totally makes sense to me. Definitely.
Why wouldn't it?
So,
game blouses.
So unless anybody has any other points on graphics, I feel like I'm going to go ahead and let Seamus take us into the music and sound portion since he was so eager to do so.
Oh God, I had to cut off the music like so quickly because it was so repetitive. In fact, I was telling Chris this last night, but we have two new people in the room, so like I can get a fresh reaction for this. So the music is just like very repetitive and it's like very plonky. It's just like bonk 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 bonk. So I just muted it and I had music playing in the other window on Spotify. I've been going through a thing this last week where I've been marathoning every single Cure album, and so I played most of this game while listening to The Cure, particularly Pornography, which is the darkest Cure album, and so I just have this bright, peppy Sailor Moon game, and in my ears I just hear, "It doesn't matter if we all die," just...
Oh, the contrast is beautiful. It's like
I know.
Like a movie trailer.
But oh my God, I don't know how the music was for the latter portion of the game. Like when you get to like chapters 3 and 4. Like Chris, what were your impressions?
Before it gets to me, I'll really turn it over to Meredith because when I was listening to the music, I noticed that same thing. It's very unorthodox for a JRPG or just a video game in general. It sounded a little too overdeveloped. So I turned to Meredith like, hey, is this from the anime? So Meredith, did it sound familiar to you?
Well, especially during the battles, I told him that those were their transformation music when he was fighting during the battles, because he was like, it did sound a little overdeveloped for him. I was like, yeah, that's Mars's transformation music when she transforms.
So yeah, I mean that they took a lot of music straight from the anime, and that's probably
it's the same composer, isn't it? I think you mentioned that at the beginning.
Yeah, the exact same composer. They got the same guy to do the job. So when you hear your regular battle music, goes and yeah, it just burns into your mind because I think the sound sampling is pretty piss. But I'm not going to expect someone who's getting paid probably a handsome penny on an anime series to know the inner workings of the Super Famicom. That's probably just not going to happen. But they're going to do the best job they can. So yeah, the battle music itself will burn it into your brain, not so much because it's terrible. I mean, it's not good, but you just have to hear it so much because you have to grind all the time. Now, the boss music, I think, was really good, and the town music was it wasn't memorable, but I'll say it wasn't bad. And I'll say that for the most part, the music in the game is good, outside the fact that you will hear the battle music over and over and over again. And you will need to think that we all need to just die, as Seamus said, and just get the cure.
Well, okay. So the thing with the battle music, though, is that like you listen to something like a Final Fantasy, and Nobuimomatsu will at least have like a different movement. He'll at least have like another verse, or he'll have like a bridge or something, so it kind of breaks up the monotony. Like, this did not have that. It was just like 1 10-second loop, and it just went on and on and on and on and on and on. And I think that's what kind of got to me after a certain point.
Yeah,
well, like an anime would.
Well, I gotta be honest. I'm actually with Seamus on this one, in that I really couldn't stand the music, just as a sort of blanket statement. If it's mostly from the show, then I think that's great that they attempted to do that, and I'm sure that fans definitely appreciate that inclusion. And for what it's worth, some of them were definitely far better than others. But I think, Chris, you actually made a really good point that I pointed out in my notes for this as well, that I felt as though they didn't make the best use of the system's sound capabilities at all, in that actually the thing that Seamus pointed out, which was to me, and I described it a different way, but I feel like we're driving at the same point, which is that I felt very like beep boopy. Like it was just beep, 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 but also high pitched, a lot of high pitched shit. And when that's coming through your speakers, it's just like, it gets real grating, especially when you've got it on such a short loop, as Seamus mentioned. And so I didn't supplant it with a different soundtrack, but let's just say I did mute this at one point, and I felt like it was a better experience.
Well, you notice like the Nobuimomatsu battle themes, like they actually kind of start very low. They kind of have like a lot of bass. They have like a lot of kick drum. And then if the battle goes on, then it moves into different, movements as like the fight gets like a little bit more intense. But if you just end it in like one turn, then the music doesn't really like, really matter, because you aren't going to be hearing much of it. But this one, nope, it's just blaring horns, just, the horns that you can do with the Super Famicom sound chip, just in your ear all the time. It's like you're stuck in a traffic jam.
Just vuvuzelas for days.
Okay, let's leave it with a compliment before we essentially, for the most part, wrap this up. It's that and Seamus already brought this up. They did use good voice compression and good voice samples for the Sailor Scouts inside the battle.
They did not have to do that. Like that is extra effort right there, getting the voice cast.
Yes, absolutely. And that was actually one of the things that made me realize, to my earlier point, that there was definitely more effort put into this than one might expect from a licensed game. And so I did appreciate that. Even as someone who had no experience with the actual show, I thought it was super cool that they included that. And it was actually done, as far as the compression of the voice clips goes, pretty well, I thought.
Yeah, it didn't have that thing that you have from like the early Street Fighter cabinet where it just sounds like they're saying the line through like, you know, like 1,000,000 pounds of cheesecloth or something like.
Yeah, it sounds like a broken McDonald's drive-through.
I actually did that for a game jam here in Portland where we were trying to replicate that, and I just parked myself in front of my microphone and I just said the line with my hand over my mouth. Like, that's the way you have to replicate something like that. Welcome to the Virtual Hangover Podcast.
That's going to be our new intro from now on.
You can have that for free. Just do that if you want.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, do you guys have any random bits of information before we give our final thoughts on this? I do have one small one, but it's not even really related to this game.
We haven't really talked about the villain cast very much, and I think that's probably one of the better bits of effort that they put into it, because everybody has a very distinct design. Every villain that you fight, even if the boss fights are really simplistic, like everybody has their own individual motivation, and everybody has their reasons for why they're fighting the Sailor Scouts, and you have this big evil, you know, bit of evilness that's kind of lording over them. And so it felt like a villain cast from the show. Like, I felt like they could have just, you know, thrown these people into a season of the anime, and I probably would have followed it. Like, that was probably the most interesting part for me.
Yeah, I would say that the Sailor villain scouts were pretty good, and I asked Meredith, and Meredith said she'd never seen it before. So
no, they're completely original.
And they're sympathetic. They're not like completely blank slates that just want to destroy things, which is somewhat refreshing in any RPG like this.
Which is also a theme for Sailor Moon. Like, the villains kind of get dimension over the course of the season. I
mean, the big bad is obviously the big bad and has no remorse. But the rest of them, they seem to have a little bit of their own arc and a way to redemption.
That is the thing that did crack me up, is that every single one of them, you see how they joined the bad guys, and every one of them seemed like very easily coerced by this big bad that's telling them to destroy the Sailor Scouts.
They're magas.
Yeah. We weren't going to talk about that.
Okay, so a bit of miscellaneous information that I had. I don't know how we timed this in the manner that we did.
Perfectly is the answer.
Yeah.
Yes. Flawlessly.
So if anyone's like really curious, like, why are we talking about Sailor Moon, is because originally we tried to have an anime month scheduled, and then it got broken up, and then we realized that we have never played this game before, so we had to push it back a little bit more. So this was supposed to be right after Fist of the North Star. Obviously it's not. But if we had that in line, it would have been even better, because the movie Sailor Moon Eternal came out in Japan this year on January 8th, with Part 2 coming out on February 11th. So I don't know how we did that, because I didn't know. I'm sure Shane did. That's why he was like, yeah, do it.
Yep.
And Seamus probably did. This is why he agreed to it. And Meredith definitely did, which is why she's here, even though she is like me on the Sonic Patron episode and just has her brain melting out her ears, mostly in disgust, not in knowledge gathering, but mostly just, I can't understand why my husband does this on a bi-weekly show. But yeah, it's and the interesting fact about these movies is it's the first new Sailor Moon film in Japan, or just first new Sailor Moon film in 26 years. So we are being topical, everybody. So go check out that movie if you can. I think it's going to be coming to Hulu if you like Sailor Moon Lou. That was terrible.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Wow. Cancel the show.
I mean, at least waifu for laifu made sense, man. Jesus.
Yeah, no, this episode is really just our gambit to try to up our Japanese listening audience. That's what it is.
Well, we're doing that while we're insulting their game that never even got released in this country during its original run. So
your shit is terrible. Please visit our Patreon.
We are retroactively mad at this game.
Fuck this game.
I would say, to be fair, retroactively mad at a game is like at least half of what we do.
That was my whole thing with the Sonic episode, where I'm just like, I'm retroactively mad at this comic that I stopped reading when I was 14. Like,
all right, so before we discuss whether or not this holds up today, based off our conversation, because, you know, I think we've kind of kept her out of the episode with most of this discussion, so I really want to hear her full thoughts. I want to hear Meredith's thoughts on whether or not she would even attempt to play this game based off our description of it. Meredith, what do you think?
Fuck no.
Oh.
That is the correct answer.
All right, well, thank you, Meredith.
Yeah.
Do you have anything more? Like, okay, go ahead. It sounds like you're trying to say something else, or is this a fuck no?
It's like, just the music alone, having it repeat every like 5 seconds would grate on my nerves. No. I'm walking around. I watch Chris get lost in the city trying to take the wrong fucking bus for like 10 minutes.
You should have been a flight attendant.
Yes.
Why didn't they have the disguise pen in this game? That would have ruled.
They did have the disguise pen in this game.
Did they?
Yes.
Yeah, Luna probably freaking waited until after he needed it.
Yeah, she turns into a peasant in the Moon Crystal Palace, and she turns into something else in another place.
All right, so a resounding fuck no from Meredith. So that's fair. I think that's a pretty good assessment. Who wants to follow that?
I'll go.
All right.
There were parts of the game that I really liked, and I think if you were a hardcore Sailor Moon fan, I think that from a story standpoint and from a character standpoint, it's all the characters you like. They all act like they're supposed to. And you have like this original set of villains, which they didn't have to do, and they, so clearly effort was put in there. I think if they just balanced it better and they had less repetitive music, I think the game would probably be like way more enjoyable. And like I said, the market for it was good, probably aiming for like, grade school children in Japan. And I get the feeling that they would be really frustrated. I mean, we're 4 grown adults and we got worn out on this game really, really quickly. So liked the story, hated the gameplay.
Fair.
All right, I'll go next. And I agree with my wife. Fuck no. This has not held up today. And look, fans of the Sailor Moon series, they're going to get some bennies out of this. They're going to enjoy some of this. And if you really want to play an RPG with Sailor Moon, I mean, this does exist. That being said, I think the fact that Angel never made an RPG prior to this, and this is really their first crack at making an RPG, I'll give it to them that this is an admirable job. It's not a good job. In fact, it's a very bad job. But it's admirable for people who made, fair to middle and fighting games and on the par beat 'em ups. So for that, it's commendable. I will give them that. It's just, it doesn't mean you have to play it though, and you shouldn't. Because look, if you love grinding, even the grinding here isn't fun. The grinding here is fairly punishing. It's not like Dragon Quest where it feels rewarding with every single level. Because even there, I like grinding there because I get new abilities, but all your abilities are unlocked from the beginning of the game, and the link system, you just get it, so there's no real point to grinding other than just survival. And that's shit. And it's really unfortunate, because Seamus is right. There's good things here. The graphics are good here. The music is reminiscent of the anime, even though if it loops a lot like an anime show does. The voice sample is there. Effort and care and love was put into this game. But it's like effort and care and love when you take a little girl and you combine her with a dog, like in Full Metal Alchemist. Okay,
damn it.
It just doesn't
Too
work.
soon, man. Too soon.
And it makes everything feel bad. All right, so stay far away from this game unless you want to be punished in the name of the moon.
All right. Well, I'll wrap this one up by I'll say, you know what? I saw a lot of folks in comment sections, like of YouTube channels and things like that, having a lot of positive nostalgia for this game. And to be fair, I can actually see why. If you're a Sailor Moon fan, I do believe that this is a pretty solid product comparatively to a lot of the other licensed garbage that, people are used to getting, a lot of that shovelware. However, it's definitely not something that I would recommend today. I'm not even sure that I would have recommended it back then unless you were like the hardest of hardcore Sailor Moon fans. The fact of the matter is that, as everybody else has kind of pointed out, it is very much a JRPG relic of its time in pretty much all of the worst possible ways, particularly the excessive amount of grinding that is required to even progress through the game. And that's not even to mention, the very poor balancing and the completely off the wall progression that you have, as well as some of the perhaps better ideas that just didn't see a really great implementation, like the link system. Honestly, I don't see why anybody ever would, but I truly believe that this game would greatly benefit from a Trials of Mana style overhaul and HD remake. Because if they were to take this and kind of to some of Seamus's points, if they were to take this and kind of streamline things and give it a really great like coat of paint and, make it 3D and get rid of a lot of the real egregious parts of it and tighten up some of the mechanics, I think it actually could be a really enjoyable game. But as I said, I'm not sure that there's a reason or a need or even like a call to have that done. But if they were to do it, I think it would actually be really successful.
All the parts are there. They just weren't put together well. It's like getting the world's best scientists together to make a fart machine. It's just a waste of all the talent.
Says you. All right. Well, I think with that about wraps up our discussion of Sailor Moon, Another Story. So first and foremost, I would like to thank both of our guests. Meredith, thank you for braving the ridiculousness and coming on and sharing your thoughts on Sailor Moon. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
And Seamus, it is good to have you back once again. It has been a while.
Always a pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me again. I really enjoyed this.
Absolutely.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you, I should probably say. Like, the game is just
He's like, yeah, I hated doing it, but I'm glad that I'm here now.
Hey, in quarantine, I'm happy to be anywhere right now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So while folks are still in quarantine and probably looking for, content to consume or things like that, where can people find you, Seamus? What do you do out there on the internets?
Just look me up at Grayman Games on YouTube, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at SP Burke. That's S_P_Burke. So you can just follow anything I'm doing there.
Fantastic. All right. And as for us, as we usually do, we've got a few quick plugs of our own. If you're listening to the show, then you've already found us. So hi, hello, welcome. Nice to have you here. But if you would like to engage with us more, there are a couple of ways you can do that. As I've mentioned a few times through this episode, we do have a public Discord, and we would love to have you join in on the discussions that we have on a daily basis. We've got a really great community going in there. So if you'd like to do that, you can go over to bit.ly/RHP chat, and that will give you an invite to the Arcade Floor text channel, where you can hop in with the rest of us and start, posting dank memes or whatever it is the kids do these days. And there are some other things you can do if you are crazy enough to like the show so much that you would like to show your support in a different way. We do, in fact, have a Patreon. You can go over there and check out the different donation tiers by visiting, gorpfans.com, because our current patrons are ridiculous and convinced me to register this URL. So that's gorpfans.com. That will bring you to our Patreon landing page. And of course, we would be forever grateful should you choose to do that. We also do have the merch store that is still open. As always, that's at bit.ly/RHP merch. You can pick up a sweet shirt or a mug or a sticker or something to send to your grandma for her birthday. Chris, why don't you talk about our Twitch channel real quick before we shut this thing down?
I was just about to say, Grandma loves the eggplant dragon.
Dude, back in the day,
she was slaying eggplants.
I'm hoping this makes sense to you two, and because I'm completely lost.
That's
it's
fine.
An eggplant, dude.
Yep.
Okay.
Eggplant. Yeah. Tick dragon. But in any case, yes, our Sunday stream is on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern, 2100 in gun time.
Gun time.
Gun time. Thank you, Grand Rapidians, for birthing that.
Gun
time. We're on twitch.tv/retro hangover, and you can find us there at 9 p.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time, unless we're in daylight saving times, then it's Eastern Daylight Time. You know what I'm talking about. But just get over there. We'll usually be playing a game semi-related to the topic of the week. Don't expect to find us playing this one. This will not be there. But we'll try to find something related. It won't be too difficult. But yeah, come join us. Come join us on our Sunday streams. We really appreciate the people who show up there. Just special shout outs to Llama and Randall, one of our patrons, and Riku, who always show up there to join in the conversation for interesting subjects and topics. And Lyle, it's been a while since you've been there, man. We miss you. Hopefully you get back there and give us some shit. You're being sporadic, Lyle. We see you. Well, we don't see you, but we see
Fucking
you.
Lyle.
I stalk your Steam account. I know where you are. All right. Well, I believe with all of that being said, until next time,
play with your makeup-wearing, Virgo-enticing Dr. Schwartzian joysticks.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for homebrewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.